All right, it is 6 p.m. on the dot, and I will call this meeting of the Lunenburg Town Council to order. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And with that, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Ernst, seconded by Councillor Bertels. Are there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, the motion's carried. That takes us on to the April 12th, 2022 council meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve those as circulated? Moved by Councillor Duggan, seconded by Councillor Sanford. Are there any errors or omissions to note? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, the motion's carried. Takes us on to public hearings, presentations, and questions. And our first presentation this evening is the recognition and certificate presentations for the 2022 Civic Volunteer Appreciation. So we're beginning tonight's meeting with a special presentation. As I said, the 2022 Volunteer of the Year nominees. The town of Lunenburg salutes the hundreds of volunteers who give their time and talents to all the groups and organizations based within the town. Your contributions enhance the high quality of life we enjoy, and we are truly grateful. Now I'd ask if nominees David Bertels, Sophie Wanfor, Sue Kelly, and Lunenburg's Provincial Volunteer of the Year, Crispin Cook, could please stand. Lunenburg wouldn't be Lunenburg without the work of David, Sophie, Sue, Crispin, and other dedicated volunteers. Now I'd like you to please join me at the front when your name is called for a token of thanks and appreciation on behalf of the town.
David Bertels, please come forward. David was nominated for the leadership he displays within the Lunenburg and District Fire Department and as a supervisor with the Junior Fire Department. Thank you, David. Sophie Wanfor, please come forward. Sophie was nominated for her support of Second Story Women's Center in youth programming and as the Food Bucks program coordinator. Thank you, Sophie. Sue Kelly, please come forward. Sue was nominated for stepping in to successfully manage the organization and volunteer staff of the Lunenburg Consignment Shop, which raises money for various local charities. Thank you, Sue.
She's a terrible
And lastly, Crispin Cook, please come forward. Crispin embodies the spirit of volunteering in Lunenburg. He is well known in the community for caring for neighbors and friends by driving them to appointments, doing their shopping, and running their errands, while empowering people to have a sense of control over their own lives. Crispin will also be honored at the Provincial Volunteer Awards in September. Thank you, Crispin.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And thank all the volunteers for everything that they do for the town. It is much appreciated. Whoops, turn my mic off. That takes us on to our second presentation, which is the Lunenburg Community Garden presentation by Kara Highfield. So Kara, the mic is right there, and you'll have 10 minutes to give your presentation, followed by 5 minutes of council questions. And you'll see the timer on the clock here, so you can help keep your time.
Okay. So thanks so much for letting me speak today. I just wanted to come and quickly give you guys an update on what's going on with the community garden and an update on the grant that we were able to procure because of your assistance last year. So before I do that, I'm just going to give a brief history of the garden so that those who may not know have an idea of what we've been up to. So my name, as I said, is Kara Highfield. I am the chair and one of the founding members of the community garden. I moved here in 2013 as I'm an artist, and I was part of the NASCAD Community Studio residency. So as my kind of community aspect, and because I was moving into the fire hall and recognizing that there was not really any green space there to grow food or build the garden, kind of saw this opportunity to create a garden space that many people that are in a similar situation to mine in town who don't have a yard of their own, maybe an apartment building, maybe not feeling confident enough to start a garden at home, will be able to have space to come and grow. So myself and a group of people came together and put together a background research document, which we presented to town council that fall in 2013 and asked for use of space at the Lunenburg Academy on the grounds there. We recognized that was a good spot as it's central, access to water through the garden shed and sunlight and all those things. We wrote the background research document, and we were able to then, sorry, you can go ahead. We were able to set out our vision, our mission, and our values within that document. And then we started to build the garden in the spring of 2014. So that's when we kind of broke ground. We have 20 garden beds at the garden, and each of those beds doesn't just have a single person attached to them, often has a family. It has, if somebody's got roommates, those roommates are often involved. It kind of, each of those beds represents a community in itself. So we have many, many people involved and many volunteer hours that went into starting the garden and over the years to maintain it. We have several community beds, which we have a pollinator garden, we have a community herb bed, and the willow dome, which is very popular with the pre-primary kids up there. We've pretty much always been full. All of our beds have always been full each year. We have, like I said, the 20 beds. And that's without really having to push it too far. People have been coming to seeking us out and coming to us, which kind of just gives an indication of the potential that the garden could have in terms of meeting the needs of the population if we were to kind of be advertising a little bit more. So, as I mentioned, last year, the town of Lunenburg was able to support us in procuring a grant with TD Friends of the Environment. That allowed us to collaborate with Coastal Action and hire a garden coordinator, Shay Graham. So with Coastal Action and a Canada Summer Grants job, Canada Summer Jobs grant that they got, we were able to use that grant, the TD grant, that the town of Lunenburg helped us get to match funding and be able to share that position between the two organizations. We were able to do pollinator plantings, community beds, and workshops. So in the summer of 2021, we were able to do planting a food forest workshop, maximizing small spaces in a garden workshop, healing benefits of kitchen herbs and common backyard plants, which was led by one of our gardeners, Gael, in collaboration with Shay, and harvest and share seed swap. Also this spring, a few weeks ago, I was able to host a couple of living willow workshops in collaboration with the Bridgewater Community Garden, and those were super successful. We had 30 participants between the 2 days. So I want to thank you all for supporting that grant initiative last year. Going into our 9th growing season now, we have brought on some new steering committee members. We have Emma Kinley, Teresa Quilty, who's here tonight, and Marion Moore coming on with us, as well as Janet Wells and Pamela Camo returning, as well as myself. And so this year, we recognize that we, after 8 years of use, our beds are in need of some repair. And so we wrote a little grant with for the Lunenburg Community Grant Program. And so we're really happy that we saw you guys were able to support us on that one. And we were able to get some repairs underway that are needed on our beds. And our hope is to each year kind of tackle 3 to 4 beds that are in need of repair, so that we can spread out the repairs over the years as opposed to doing a big rebuild all once again. And our sign up and start of season work party are in the works for this year as well. So the last thing I wanted to touch on is that we saw within the Project Lunenburg Comprehensive Community Plan that there is kind of a commitment to supporting community gardens in section 9, which is the environment and sustainability section, the continued support of existing community gardens to promote promote the benefit of local food production, encourage the development of community gardens throughout the town, and regulate associated structures, water sources, and waste disposal, and other needs associated with community garden uses through the land use bylaw. It's really great. Excited that that was part of it. And basically just wanted to let you guys know who we are, what we're up to, and to keep us in mind for future collaborations or projects going forward. And that hopefully the town will see us as an asset, and that we can help bring new people into town and encourage them to stay, because they can come and learn to garden. Yeah, so thank you so much for letting me speak. Hopefully I was brief enough. And thank you for renewing our lease also earlier this year.
Thank you, Kara. Yeah, you have 3 minutes to spare. So, any questions from council at this stage? All right, seeing none. Thank you for your presentation, Kara. And thank you for all the work that you do for the town. That takes us on to the Bicycle Nova Scotia Blue Route Hub Trial Project. And we have Megan Doucette here to speak to that.
Hi, my name is Megan Doucette, and I'm here on behalf of Bicycle Nova Scotia. You might remember my colleague Allison was here a few months ago. And so we have been, since then, working with the Lunenburg Board of Trade to come up with some changes to the project and to kind of work with the business community to collaborate and really get everyone on board to move forward. Okay, next slide. So where this project is starting from is the Blue Route Hubs project that we worked on with the town in 2018, 2019, which was fed into the comprehensive community plan with a goal to connect Old Town and New Town through active transportation. And just a little update on the timeline. So we were last here in August of 2021, and there was an approved pop-up bike lane project for this June. In the meantime, in February, the Board of Trade came to you and asked for some changes, and they had some concerns about the project. So between now and then, we have had conversations with the Board of Trade and really come together. They're now part of our organizing team, and we've come up with some solutions that are agreeable for everyone. So the changes that we're proposing include moving the dates from June to October. And so that is kind of to help the businesses with moving this project a little bit outside of the main tourist season to try to mitigate some parking concerns and things like that when it's a little bit quieter in town. And then the other change is to move the bi-directional bike lane from the south side of Montague Street to the north side. So we have worked with them to kind of make these changes, and we're excited to be having the full support and being able to hopefully move forward with that. I'll just kind of show you some of the changes here. So the bike lane has moved from the south side, and that was the thought behind that was wanting the vehicle parking to be closer to the sidewalk and hopefully enabling more access to the businesses that way for people who are driving through town. And then we've shown the protected bidirectional bike lane on the north side. So we've updated those designs based on our conversations and consultation with the business community. And if we could actually just flow to the next slide after that. So in these designs here that we're presenting today, we're showing this third block, which is supposed to be a pedestrian mall area, as empty at the moment, just because we are planning a workshop with the Board of Trade members to come up with what kind of programming and different types of materials and things will be used in this space. So this third block will not have a bike lane, but it will be open for people walking and cycling and rolling and closed to vehicles. There will be through traffic, or not, there won't be through traffic, but there will be opportunities for people doing deliveries to the businesses in this block, as well as emergency services, and the people that have driveways there will be able to access those. But we will be recommending for other traffic to not enter this block. So we're looking forward to kind of working with the business community even further to design what kind of layout and what kind of materials we want to use here. But that would probably look like picnic tables, could be bistro tables, trying to bring some green and plants and things like that to the space. So that part is still being worked through. But this is kind of what we've come up with together, and we wanted to bring this forward back to council and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Megan. Are there any questions of council at this stage? Councillor Duggan?
I'm just looking at this. So where Linden Avenue and Montague Street meet on the first, this one, there's only a crosswalk there across Blue Nose Drive at this time. So how would that work for people who reach the end of the bike lane to then safely get across Montague and onto the Front Harbor Trail? So it just shows like, you know, sort of a connection between the two, but there's not actually a safe route for that. So just wondering how that would work.
Yeah, so we've shown a Chero stencil, so that would be a bike with arrows showing kind of the path of direction and stop signs on all sides so that people would take turns flowing there. I will say that it wouldn't necessarily be a preferred side of the road for a longer term implementation because of that. Additionally, because on the south side, you avoid, as you're cycling, you avoid mixing with traffic going up the side streets. So for those reasons, it is a little bit of a safer option to keep it on the south side, but we really wanted to work with the community and the businesses on the road and come up with an option that would work for everyone.
Okay, sorry, part to that. So then is it possible to put some type of temporary safer way to get across to the Blue Nose Drive? Crosswalk to get across? I mean, right now it just sort of shows that you cut across the street diagonally to access the trail. So
yeah, we could take a closer look at it. One issue as well is if we did look at some kind of crossing, legally people would be required to get off their bike and walk, right. Which is a challenge for people who maybe have a disability and can't necessarily get off their bike and walk with ease. So yeah, that's a bit of a challenge right now with the Traffic Safety Act. You're allowed to have a cross ride is what it's called, where you can stay on your bike and cross, but only at a signalized intersection.
Okay, so that's where the stop signs come into play. Is that how that works? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Have Councillor Bertels?
Thank you. I just have a question with regards to the end there on Duke Street. And you're saying that it's going to be cut off because that's potentially where the mall area is going to be, right? So how is emergency vehicles supposed to access that block if you have picnic tables and stuff out?
Yeah.
And how are they supposed to turn? Like fire truck certainly cannot turn and go up on Duke Street to
We're going to leave 3.5 meters open at some point, kind of to access through there, which is big enough for like transport trucks to go through, which would include fire trucks would be that same kind of size. And then however we place those materials will ensure that there is a clear path through the site.
Just kind of a tight squeeze now before we put a picnic table there.
Yeah, so thinking about the fact that there won't be any cars parked there, that really opens up more width to have some different materials there.
You thought about the trucks going up? Like, have you actually seen a transport truck go up Duke Street? It's just kind of a tight squeeze and the grade, just kind of an awkward spot.
So they'll be able to keep going on Montague if they need to make like deliveries in that area. And if they don't, if the truck is coming through and it doesn't need to be on Montague Street, perhaps they would opt to take a different street, if that's an option. But they can continue through on Montague. We're suggesting suggesting that vehicles don't go through, and we'll make that clear with signage, but there will be a way for vehicles to move through.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Megan, for your presentation. And this is coming up later in the meeting and will be discussed then.
Great, thank you.
All right, that takes us on to, there is a Nature Canada proclamation request for World Oceans Day on June 8th, 2022. There is a draft proclamation there. Is it anyone's pleasure to move that as presented? To Councillor Sanford, seconded by Councillor Ernst. Is there any discussion or debate on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, the motion is carried. Takes us on to the Board of Trade request for grant support letters. There are two motions provided. Is it anyone's pleasure to move those? One or both? Councillor moving both. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor? Is there anything staff would like to add or summarize to this? No? All right.
Just one small thing. The
Yeah.
Board of Trade has written to request these letters of support. I should just comment that the town has applied to the same two grants for different projects, but the Board of Trade is aware of this, and we feel that should either application be approved, it would be a collaboration between our organizations, so we don't see it as a conflict.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Any discussion or debate? No, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right, that takes us on to business arising from the minutes or unfinished business. The bicycle lane pilot project on Montague is the first step there. There was the presentation. I don't think there's an additional staff report. So is it anybody's pleasure to move the draft motion as presented? Moved by Councillor Halverson, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Is there any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. There are three items from our committee of the whole meeting minutes. They are budgetary items, the water, electric utility budgets, and the community grants. So we can go through those probably individually, starting with the water utility budget. Is it anyone's pleasure to move the water utility budget? Moved by Councillor Sanford, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion or debate? No? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Can I get someone in the same vein to move the electric utility budget? Moved by Councillor Duggan, seconded by Councillor Ernst. Any discussion or debate on that? We exhausted this all at committee of the whole. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, yes, and we'll note Councillor, the Deputy Mayor is opposed. Yes, yeah. Just for consistency's sake, yes. I'd forgotten you voted against that. Community grants. Would someone like to move the community grants as circulated? Moved by Councillor Ernst, seconded by Councillor Sanford. Discussion or debate? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And it is April 26th, and we are done the budget for the year. Must be a record, Lisa. We'll have to look through the minute books. All right, that takes us on to new business. Inventory of historic buildings. There is a staff report and draft motion, so I will give the floor to staff to present their report.
Thank you, Your Worship. A book called Lunenburg, A History of Historic Buildings was published by the town of Lunenburg in 1984, compiled by Bill Plaskett when he was employed by the town as heritage manager. The original edition contained no copyright statement and was long out of print. In 2018, the Lunenburg Heritage Society requested and was granted permission to allow them to reprint the book from the town. The permission was granted for 2 years at that time. The town retains the copyright on the work. The Lunenburg Heritage Society is once again requesting permission to reprint the book. Their draft letter of understanding requests permission for another 2 years. Staff recommend that permission be granted and extended for 20 years. Staff consider the publication to be an activity that is beneficial to the municipality in that it supports knowledge of Lunenburg's record of built heritage, and extending permission to 20 years also avoids the requirement for repeat requests to council.
Okay, thank you. There's a draft motion provided. It's anyone's pleasure to move that as circulated. Moved by Councillor Ernst, seconded by Councillor Bertels. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Takes us on to item B under new business, which is the first report on development statistics. There is a staff report for information there. And the planning technician is with us tonight to provide his report.
Thank you, Your Worship. At your request, we have prepared a quarterly report, first of many to come, on building permits that have been issued over the first quarter for this year. Just want to note that building permits are commonly issued for new construction, renovations involving a change in structure, building interior, exterior footprint changes, or changes in building use. And it's common to have more development permits than you would building permits due to development permits also take into account. We would issue a development permit usually for a building permit circumstance, but we would also issue development permits for things like signage and accessory buildings and things that don't require a building permit. This report is focused on building permits primarily. We use the town's municipal software that we've moved to since mid last year to provide an overview summary of those development and building permits for the first quarter of 2022. At the time of drafting this report, we had issued 16 building permits with an estimated construction value of just over $1 million for the period of January 1st through April 1st, 2022. This is the first report, we've kept it very high level. We can't compare to previous timeframes. We can break it out a bit more depending on the interest of council to see a little bit more behind the statistics there as to the type of permit that's been issued. I'll leave that to you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Trevor. I think it's a good first start and I appreciate the effort. Any questions of council for that report? Okay. I think it is a good first start. I think a lot of the reason for my initiating the request that we start doing quarterly development reports was to look at things like housing units and to try to get a better sense for council on the housing question. So as you say, I think in future variations, breaking those statistics out by units, types of units, rough locations within town or zones or whatever, I think that would be probably helpful for council. I don't want to make too much work for you, but is that something that's feasible?
That is definitely feasible and kind of anticipated, actually. So thank you for that.
No matter how hard I try, I can't get one step ahead of Trevor. Thank you for that report. There are no questions of council. Okay. That takes us on to item C, Lunenburg County Accessibility Advisory Committee appointments. There is a staff report and draft motion. Anybody would like to summarize that? Or, I mean, I think it's pretty evident it's appointments. So if anyone wants to move the motion. Moved by Councillor Sanford, seconded by Councillor Bertels. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Takes us on to item D, the Lunenburg Town Procedure Policy 98, Revised Committee Council Policy. Councillor Sanford gave notice of this at the last meeting. There was a staff report previously, so we'll take Councillor Sanford as the mover with her consent. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bertels. I have two questions, but I'll leave it to anybody else to see if they have questions first. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess more for clarification than anything. Under section B, it says where it says specific criteria, the nominee may represent a specific stakeholder or interest group. So wouldn't that constitute like a conflict of interest? I guess give me some clarification on that it doesn't. Otherwise, I'm fine.
Okay, the report was prepared by the assistant clerk, so we'll go to her on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. The sentence does read, if applicable to the committee. There are in some cases on certain committees that we look for representation from particular groups, such as with our anti-racism committee, for example. So it's not applicable to every committee. It would have to be part of their terms of reference.
Any further questions before I dive in? It's policy, so I'm going to be the scrutinizer. I have two or three, Heather. The first one is under section 6. It's my view that the nominee should be screened by staff rather than the councillors on that committee, the same way we do with provincial volunteers. It was ultimately a council appointment, but I think up until the screening is done, we wouldn't want to be involved. I'm wondering if council agrees. Okay, we can take that as an amendment with unanimous consent. The second one was to Councillor Mosier's point about 6B. We actually don't have prior experience with municipal government, which I think might be useful, just in terms of the criteria to place somewhere. And in section 7, this is, I think, a holdover from a previous version, but if council wishes to discuss nominees, and this is specifically referring to the council nominees, it shall do so in camera. And I'm wondering if we sought like committee members and councillors wouldn't be personnel. So I don't think it would be applicable to discuss them in camera. So I'm wondering if we have a legal opinion on that or if we sought one.
We did not. We could.
Yeah, I think otherwise I think we can just strike the section and seek, a legal opinion and add it if it's needed. Those were all mine. Does everybody agree with all those? Okay, are those clear to staff in terms of the amendments? All right. Then as amended, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or debate on this policy amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Finally, I need a motion moved and seconded to meet in camera to just consider the listed items pursuant to section 22(2) of the Municipal Government Act. Moved by Councillor Sanford, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried, and with council's consent, we'll take a 10-minute recess and reconvene at 6:43 in camera.